Temple Ashaju and Adedayo Bakare from Afrinvest are standing by at the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Still, both of them will try to put some macroeconomic perspectives to the big story around the marketplace. Temple and Adedayo, thank you very much. Hanging in there for a few minutes. Let's take a listen to Ayodele Akinwumi, who is the head of research at FSDH Research Group, about what they think is the outlook for the market as we get into the second quarter of the year, talking about tax, talking about inflation, budget, and all of that. Let's have this conversation after we take a listen to Ayodele Akinwumi here for a few minutes. Everyone, take a listen.
The federal government of Nigeria, FGN, needs to implement to ensure that Nigeria achieves the desired goal of inclusive growth. This measure relates to the provision of more conducive business environment in order to attract investment, both local investment and foreign direct investment. We note that in the last few months, we've been attracting more of foreign portfolio investments, which is not really too. Yes, it helps in short-term stability, but then in terms of driving growth, foreign direct investment is usually better. It will also require government to spend more money in some critical sectors of the economy to stimulate household consumption and to drive economic growth. We understand that the government would require funds to implement this measure and pump more money into the economy. We are also aware that government's revenue is low at the moment, while our expenses, both recurrent and the capital projects, are growing. Therefore, government needs to devise ways to increase its ability to generate more revenue without necessarily increasing tax rates, as this may reduce household consumption and reduce tax compliance from the payers. FSH research analysis shows that government can earn more revenue from the value-added tax in Nigeria by developing strategies to increase household consumption and increase tax compliance. The consumption data and the revenue from the value-added tax in the Federation Account Allocation Committee, FAC, shows that the ratio of the VAT revenue to household consumption averaged 1.07 between 2014 and 2018. The highest of 1.15 was recorded in 2014. This is significantly lower than the actual VAT rate in the country of 5%. It is important to note, however, that some household consumption items are exempted from VAT. Therefore, the ratio of VAT revenue to household consumption that government may not necessarily be equal to VAT rates of 5%. The products and services exempted from VAT include all medical and pharmaceutical products and services, basic food items, baby products, books and educational materials, and all exported products and services. However, FSH research believes government can raise the ratio to 2.5 with appropriate measures in place. We believe the low tax revenue, that's the low VAT revenue, can be linked to the following factors. Number one, the large informal sector in Nigeria whose VAT is difficult to capture. The National Bureau of Statistics put the size of the informal gross domestic products at 41.43 as at 2015, while the International Monetary Fund put it at 65% in 2017. The non-remittance of VAT, that's another factor that leads to that where we have low tax VAT revenue in Nigeria. The non-remittance of VAT collected by certain collection agents. Number three, weak consumption in Nigeria. If the household consumption grows at the ratio, and the ratio of VAT to revenue to GDP increases to 2.5 from 2019 through 2023, government may be able to raise VAT revenue from 1.8 0.09 trillion, which was the figure that they raised in 2018, to 3.47 trillion in 2023. And therefore, effort then needs to be geared towards ensuring that they raise the VAT revenue. FSH research suggests the following measures to increase VAT revenue. Number one, leverage existing associations and ecosystems in the informal sector to encourage and aid in VAT collection and remittance to government. Next, continue to work with different operators in the financial industry to increase financial inclusion and to reduce informal sector of the economy. Next, enforcement of appropriate sanctions on earning agent who defaults in tax collections and remittances. Organize sensitization programs for collection agents to educate them on their role in VAT collection and remittances. Government can also deploy technology to capture VAT payers and give them incentives at the end of a fiscal year, and this will encourage them to continue to pay. The government can also deploy technology to capture the collection agents and to give them collection incentive at the end of the fiscal year. The effort to increase VAT compliance and block leakages may increase VAT revenue by 8.25 trillion between 2019 and 8.25 trillion between 2019 and 2023 without increasing the VAT rates from 5%. In addition, FSTH research recommends the sale of government assets that are not currently profitable and are draining government meager salary resources. This will generate income for government in the short term and save income for the government in the medium to long term. Other macroeconomic development in the month of March, and then outlook for the month of April. FSH research expects the March 2019 inflation rate to drop marginally to 11.29 from 11.31 in February. The external reserve maintained an upward trend in March 2019, rising to hit $44.34 billion, the highest figure since September 2018. The rise in the external reserve was driven by the significant rise in foreign portfolio investment in March and increase in crude oil price. These also resulted in an appreciation in the value of the naira and provide short-term stability for the foreign exchange rate.
Ayodele Akinwumi, who's the head of research at FSDH Group. Let's throw some of what he outlines as part of the macroeconomic issues, of course, with impact for the market. So Temple Ashaju, our business correspondent at the Stock Exchange, our studios down there, and of course, our very good friend from Afrinvest, Adedayo Bakari. So let's chew this together, gentlemen, a little bit. Temple, take it from here first.
Right, Bosin. Thank you so much. Well, Adedayo, I'm very sure you actually heard a couple of things that Akinwumi Ayodele of FSDH said. I'm wondering how you agreed with him around the issues of tax. Should they be raising VAT, or we should be trying to basically broadening, basically expand the collection and compliance and all of that?
I think there's no one answer to all that. A lot of things we have to, consider in terms of, raising tax or maybe broadening the tax base or increasing compliance. I think everything, they're all a mix of things that we can do. For us at Afrinvest, we believe, just raising VAT without any reforms of, the tax system, tax policies, tax administration is basically a lazy way of trying to say, oh, we want to make, collect more revenues. For instance, there are ways in which government can boost revenues, to an extent. Fuel subsidies is one. In 2018, we paid over $1 trillion in subsidies. So, for instance, if you say, "Oh, we're removing, subsidies," that is automatically you're generating an extra $1 trillion that will be shared, among the various governments. Now, also in terms of tax, it's not just about raising VAT, because when you think in terms of who are the people paying VAT, over half of the VAT collection in Nigeria happens in Lagos. Yeah. About another 25% happens in Abuja. So basically, for Lagos, for instance, there's also an extra consumption tax at 5%, apart from VAT. So if you say, "Oh, we are increasing VAT, maybe doubling VAT to 10%, then that means the entire consumption tax on Lagosians is around 15%.
But what Ayodele Akinwumi is saying is that if you actually broaden collection, expand, and help to improve on compliance on the part of the informal economic players, that you will actually realize more trillions of naira.
Absolutely, but the problem is the formal economy is basically in Lagos, Abuja and co. Because basically, VAT is, you can't charge VAT on, an item that is not charged by business that is in the formal economy, and that is why you continue to see.
So maybe that's why we need to consumption rebates, according to what the NBS is requesting.
Yeah, I mean, consumption happens.
The CBN governor.
Consumption happens all across Nigeria, right? But you find that over 85% of VAT collection happens in only 4 states. So in terms of, government has to do a lot in terms of saying, "Oh, we want to expand the informal economy to generate more, more revenues." But when you look at it in that respect, you do not think that will happen in the short term. Government's fiscal, problems are now and immediate. And one of the ways in which we think they can, realize more revenues is, number one, align the exchange rates 305, move it to 360, collect more oil revenues. Number two, remove wasteful expenditure like subsidies. If you want to give subsidies, give it into something that is productive into the economy. Those are easier ways to realize more revenues. But when you think in terms of the tax policy, look at the IMF consultation on Nigeria. It's not just about increasing taxes. You need to reform the entire, from tax collection, the tax processes, tax administration, your tax policies. There are various issues that need to be worked upon before you say, "Oh, we just want to increase, increase taxes." It's not a silver bullet, and there's no, easy way around boosting revenues in Nigeria. Government has to do the hard work. But for now, immediate impact on revenue numbers is, looking at ending fuel subsidies and co.
That will take us back to what we were in 2016 again, where we saw inflation shooting up. Going by what FSDH has now said, it's saying that March inflation should come in lower at 11.29% compared to 11.3%. But if by the time we remove fuel subsidy, that is going to also change the whole thing. We're going to have increase in price of transportation, increase in price of food, and increase in a whole lot of things again.
Yes, absolutely. The prices will transmit into the real economy and into real prices.
So that is push up inflation.
Yes, absolutely. But temporarily, inflation is not. Prices are not something that is static. Over time, you see a moderation, and the benefit is that if government collects more revenues and actually deploys it into critical areas of the economy, then we might see, a revamping, an expansion in GDP, an expansion in growth, an expansion in income for people. So in the sense that when you look at government's fiscal balances, you are 60%, over 60% of it, you're using it to pay your cost of debt, which is, debt servicing to revenue is over 60%. Now, when you think in terms of recurrent expenditure to revenue is over 100%. So where is the money coming from? You have wage adjustments coming over 2019 to 2020. Minimum wage has been increased by over 67%. You're going to also have an overall, increase across the salary structure of civil servants. At state level, at federal level. So they need to pay this money somehow, and revenues need to come one way or another. We can't, keep ramping up debt when our current levels are unsustainable.
Maybe we've gotten to a stage whereby we need to start voting like we had the vote for Brexit, and you're going to have a second referendum in Nigeria. Now, we'll throw it to the public and see if we should have inflation, if we should have VAT increased, or we should have the removal of fuel subsidy so that we can manage our inflation and, of course, before everybody go back on the Buhari administration again.
Unfortunately, you can't leave that to the public. You need the government to make the hard choices.
Absolutely. Well, Bosun has got a question. Bosun, let's hear what you have for Adedayo.
Yes, Tempo, just a quick one. I'm just trying to sidestep what you folks are discussing. Zenith Bank just announced that a new managing director, group managing director and CEO will take over from June the 1st. His name is Ebenezer Onyeago. Of course, he spent the last 17 years in Zenith Bank. He's the current deputy managing director of the bank, and he's replacing Peter Amangbo, who's the outgoing group managing director and CEO, whose tenure expires at the end of May. So June 1st, Zenith Bank, one of Nigeria's tier 1 bank, one of the largest banks in Nigeria, will be having a new managing director. Is there any word from Adedayo here about this change of leadership or change of baton at Zenith Bank?
So do you think there will be any change of plans going forward at Zenith Bank now in terms of the change of administration we'll be saying? The deputy managing director is actually taking over from Peter Amangbo. I mean, he joined in 2016, October 2016 or thereabouts. Basically, what are your expectations in Zenith Bank?
Zenith Bank remains, one of the strongest banks in the Nigerian economy. In terms of when you look at their capital adequacy, when you look at the strength of the balance sheet, the total assets, when you look at profitability, they are one of the strongest. I think after GTB, they are the second strongest bank. And in terms of efficiency and return on equity, that's where GTB beats Zenith. So for us, we believe the overall vision of the group we continue to sustain a very good track record of profitability, very healthy balance sheet. It doesn't matter that, of course, we can see a change in strategy until management communicates that. We can't speculate on that, but we believe that the overall vision of the company to be the biggest bank in Nigeria will continue.
And of course, it's actually taking over from the 1st of June or thereabouts. I mean, that's when we'll possibly start seeing a whole lot of basically new dawn in that particular company. But this takes us back into the banking sector again, where you have actually been trying to expatiate on the state of their loan books and the fact that it's beginning to improve now. What's the outlook for the banking sector in terms of their NPLs in 2019?
Okay, in terms of 2019, you expect that the overall momentum in the economy is still very weak, but we are starting to see progress. For instance, between 2017 and 2018, we've seen that if in the non-oil economy, apart from agriculture, services, manufacturing, we are seeing a bit of, an improvement in growth. It's still not as diversified as we want it to be, because when you think in terms of critical drivers of that sector, you think in terms of ICT, which did very, very well in 2018. So overall, we're seeing an improvement, and we believe that should translate to a better loan, a healthy balance sheet for banks in 2019 as well. But of course, there are also some reforms, some things the government can do that can make things better. For instance, a lot of these banks are still carrying NPL. For instance, when you analyze the non-performing loans, you see that a lot is in the oil sector. You have some in the power sector as well. So until our government actually undertakes the reforms needed, in oil and gas sector, the downstream sector, for instance, in terms of pricing of petrol prices, and also in terms of electricity, adjusting electricity prices, so that more of this
cost reflective.
So that power operators have a better profitability and they can repay the debts they have with banks. So in terms of those reforms, if those reforms happen going forward, if it's part of the agenda of President Buhari, for the second term, then we should see even a better performance for banks.
Adedayo Bakare, thank you so much for your thoughts being shared today on the Business Morning. Thanks to Radio. Adedayo Bakare is of AfriInvest, a major research in there. Back to you, Bosun.
Yes, thank you, Tempo. We'll chat to Zenith Bank and a few others. Seplat just announcing his full year 2018 numbers as well. For everyone there, be on the standby. We'll be right back. We'll take all of this into the market straight for our first call for a new trading week after the break.